Members of Parliament, support staff, TV viewers, radio listeners, all following this meeting via social media, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I welcome you to this Central Committee meeting number 12 for today, Thursday, January the 23rd. At this time, I want to give a special welcome to the representatives of the Sint Maarten Farmers Cooperative. With us here today this morning, we have Mr. Denisio Wyatt, Mr. Emilio Calmera, Ms. Sharon Arnell, and Ms. Marie Boosman. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this meeting. We have established a quorum of 10 members. Please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have received notices of absence from the following members: MP Lyndon Lewis, MP Viren Kotai, and MP Ludmila de Weaver. Are there any notifications, ladies and gentlemen? Before I give the floor to anyone, I make note of the absence of MP Irian. Are there any notifications? That doesn't appear to be the case, so we can go over to the agenda point for today. The agenda points, and starting with the first one, and that is a presentation by the Sint Maarten Farmers Cooperative regarding the state of agriculture on Sint Maarten. The second agenda point, which will follow, is the approval of the composition of the delegation and provisions for members of Parliament to participate in the SSS Cooperative meeting, the Saba Sint Maarten Cooperative meeting. In the bottom, which was scheduled tentatively from February the 12th to the 14th of this year. However, when we get to that agenda point, I will explain to members that there might be a change in those dates. So we can go over to agenda point number 1. And just as an introduction to the agenda point, it is, as all know, the theme of this parliamentary year, and as presented during the opening of the parliamentary year 2024-2025, the theme was uncovering and supporting agriculture and sustainable agricultural practices. That's the theme under which this parliamentary year was opened. And in doing so, the Parliament aims to highlight sustainability in our community with a specific focus on sustainable practices and methods in the local agricultural sector. To that end, the Central Committee meeting was held on September the 11th, 2024, with the Minister of TIAT addressing the agenda point at the time, update regarding agriculture on Sint Maarten. Today, Parliament has invited the Sint Maarten Farmers Cooperative to share a presentation on the state of agriculture on Sint Maarten. I don't think that we could have thought of a better group of persons to do this, to apprise Parliament of the state of agriculture on Sint Maarten, than the persons we have before us here today. So at this time, I would want to give the floor to the representatives of Sint Maarten Farmers Cooperative for the opening remarks and your presentation. I believe Mr. Wyatt will take the floor from here to make his presentation. Mr. Wyatt, you have the floor.
Blessed morning. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Blessed morning, honorable parliamentarians and ministers and the community at large. We are blessed this morning to be here and given an opportunity to share a bit more about the current state of agriculture here on Sint Maarten. We'll just jump into the slide presentation one time. We plan to take up too much of your time today, so we're going to go straight to the point. Currently, the current stage of agriculture on Sint Maarten is at its minimum capacity due to a few different factors. Things such as flat land space, which is limited, but still does not, let's say, exclude the fact that we cannot utilize hillside spaces to be able to be productive with agriculture. Limited access to resources. For example, this last year, for the past 4 years, has been a great example with an organization like R4CR, for example, that really brought resources, to NGOs locally that empower them to make steps within their community. So resources is something that's definitely lacking when it comes to getting agriculture up off of the ground. And this is why there's so limited activity going on due to a lack of resources too as well. When we look at limited commercial space, commercial projects, so even though we might not have flat land space, we still have places where we can be let's say, have diversified projects when it comes to technology implementations within them too, which makes it a little bit more easier to move forward in an innovative time. So right now, when you look at limited commercial production projects, there's like one project on the French side with Farm for You, for example, that does pretty good with lettuce, but then it's still limited. Because if everybody decides to buy lettuce tomorrow, they still won't be able to be to a level of sustainability, right? So we need more current commercial-like projects to be inclusive in the development of agriculture moving forward. Things like limited incentives too as well, water, current. Just a brief example, I've been paying water at the farm, for example, for the past 12 years. 150 gillas, maximum 250 gillas. And then when this whole situation with GB occurred, I get a bill for like 890 gillas. Things like this, for us as farmers is difficult because we depend on a lot of water. So when there's no water incentives, electrical incentives, tax incentives, these different things, it makes it even more difficult to be able to push agriculture to a certain capacity and still keep it cost-friendly and affordable to the general public. So we have to keep that in mind. We need more commercial production projects in order to complement our agricultural product. Limited incentives too as well. We need those as well to empower our agricultural projects. Limited policies and laws. I know a few years back, government started off with the agricultural policy. I'm not too sure at this point, for example, how far along that has been doing government any great use, or if there's any laws or any other legislations that came out of that policy to continue to empower the development of agriculture. Because again, we also need that type of reinforcement from government to be able to back agriculture if we do want to see it become a reality. As you know, every other country in the Caribbean, the biggest agricultural incentives are basically supported by governments. We have limited education and participation within our schools. Because again, we coming up in a Caribbean country where we have good weather and good soil, we come from a cultural background too, where agriculture was part of our heritage. Over the course of years, we've substituted that for hospitality, which we see now is really just that one pillar that can no longer be firm for us to stand on. So we need to go back to the roots of things, and also going back to the roots of things really mean that we have to get our kids involved, because as those generations come up and don't build a certain love, appreciation, and admiration or passion for agriculture or environment, as you can see today, we have those same results: pollution, not too much environmental positive impacts, overdevelopment, all of these things. So I think to go back to educating the youth is fundamental on how we can be able to move forward for the future with having them lead the way, but also finding it that it's important and be able to love this thing that we call agriculture, because without that, again, there's limited sustainability also to mankind, and that's one thing that we definitely have to be very, very aware of as well. So with that, is really the current state of agriculture on the island. There's really nothing going on, and that's really because of all the following points. So with that in mind, there is still possibilities, but those points and agendas below need to be taken into consideration very seriously if we do want to make something a reality here on the island. All right, thank you. I'll also introduce my next colleague, if that's okay, Ms. Sharon Arnell, and she will touch base a little bit on how does agriculture contribute to the country's GDP, and does it have any potential overall? So, Ms. Sharon Arnell, the floor is yours. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wyatt. Good morning, honorable members of Parliament. So, as just was stated, currently there are no real sustainable and structural investments in agriculture. Thus, the effect on our GDP is limited. However, if priority is given to the sector, it can have a substantial impact on our GDP. For example, when studying in the region, the impact in the region, we can see that the average GDP of agriculture increased from 4.5% in 2013 to 7% and increasing in 2023. And if we look more specifically at the different countries, we see the GDP contributions of over 8% and sometimes 20%. It is very important and interesting to note that the agriculture sector in these countries exists in tandem with the other sectors, such as industry and tourism. So to focus on agriculture as a diverse pillar is not competing with other sectors. Actually, it is complementing the other sectors. As we also see in our research, that this sector, as it develops, it can also have a positive impact on the labor force, where the economically inactive persons can have the opportunity for work in the agriculture sector, just contributing to the reduction of unemployment. As it pertains to the next slide. Yeah. So as it pertains to local product development, agriculture facilitates access to locally grown produce for entrepreneurs for their innovative ideas and creations. Examples such as using fresh and locally grown seasoned peppers to create pepper sauces, seasonings, fruit and vegetables used for coconut oil, jams, creation of soaps, juices, syrups, and other spices, and other artisanal products. There are many creative ideas and product production among the youth as well. And this gives them a sense of confidence and pride in creating products from fresh, homegrown produce. This brings me to the effect of agriculture on tourism. These days, tourists are seeking an experience. They are seeking an authentic experience of Sint Maarten's culture and traditions. As I just mentioned, artisanal products and the availability of local produce contribute to this experience for tourists, giving them an additional way to have a meaningful connection to our local community. What we see at our bi-weekly farmers market is where the tourists and community members eagerly visit to buy our products, produce, while at the same time they're engaging with each other, fostering a sense of community, creating new bonds and relationships. Agriculture also can have a positive effect on our local SMEs by providing them with new opportunities for diversification, as we know now that some of the markets are oversaturated. So there are many of the same type of businesses, small businesses, and it can provide new retail distribution points and allowing small businesses, micro, small, medium enterprises to grow and expand. So with this, I would like to convey to Parliament that we do see potential for growth of this pillar in Sint Maarten. I will now turn it over to Mr. Calmira. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, good morning, honorable members of parliament. Today I address you to highlight a proven model because unfortunately agriculture is a special sector that if not put in a right perspective, it won't work. So the proven model that can help ensure the sustainability and growth of agriculture on Sint Maarten, which currently is fragmented and not sustainable in terms of the level of food resilience for the island, which will become more and more pressing issue in the future looking at global trends and dynamics. For example, recent events, California fires underscore the fragility of global agriculture supply chains and the importance of developing local solutions. For example, California's role highlights a big issue now that the fires destroy a lot of the farmland because, number one, it is the largest agriculture state in the US. It's also a major exporter and primarily so of almonds, wine, pistachios, dairy, walnuts, among its top exports. And it's also a global influence in certain crops. As a matter of fact, it's responsible for 80% of the world's supply. And so if they go down, we can definitely expect food prices to go up. Before we delve into the opportunities and challenges that lie before us in agriculture, I want to reflect on two powerful principles, one from scripture and one from the inspirational words of Bishop T.D. Jakes. In Genesis 11:5-8, it is written, "But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other. So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth and stopped the building, and they stopped building the city." This scripture reminds us of the extraordinary power of unity and shared purpose. It highlights a profound truth. When people come together with one language, one vision, and one mission, the impossible becomes possible. Now, Bishop T.D. Jakes, in his sermon titled "Destiny Flocks Together," builds on this principle by drawing inspiration from geese flying in formation. T.D. Jakes mentions that if you take a solo flight into destiny, you will eventually lose momentum. Not because you are not great, not because you are not good, not because you are not anointed, but because destiny flocks together. It is who you are with. It is a team effort, and in the process of flocking there is a momentum and a trust that you get when you flock with the right people that you will not get in isolation. Mr. Jakes also draws reference in his sermon to geese who are partners for life. When geese get ready to fly to new locations, they don't do it alone. They fly in a V-shaped formation. Now, when they fly in the formation, in structure, in order, without competing with each other, they complement each other. And there are a couple of things that happen when they do that. The one that is up front has the biggest job, Denicio, because he breaks the wind first, so that the next one in the wind is broken by the flapping of the other one's wings, and it passes all the way down the line until they are lifted by the flapping of the wings of the bird in front of them. So I'm lifting by who's in front of me. I'm also lifted by who's beside me. And I'm lifted by my ability to be great in the midst of other greatness makes me greater, gives me lift. Each bird benefits from the uplift created by the one in the front. As a result, the flock uses up to 70% less energy than if each bird flew alone. It takes 70% less energy to fly if you stop doing it by yourself. So this just shows that without that community bondness, it's almost difficult to do the agriculture as we want it to do, right? Now, there's one caveat to this, though. Now, in order to fly with me and for us to have the formation, you've got to have the rhythm. Because your tardiness, your slowfulness, and your inconsistency slows down the formation, hinders the rhythm, and stops the blessing. So that's a caveat. Now, these words speak directly to agriculture challenges and opportunities here in Sint Maarten. Farmers, like flocks, should not thrive in isolation, but through connection, collaboration, and shared effort. Just as birds instinctively fly in formation to conserve energy and reach their destination faster, so too can we as a community come together to create a cooperative structure that propels our agriculture to new heights. Now, is this possible? I will briefly highlight the story of CHS Incorporated, a cooperative in the United States that embodies these principles of collaboration and shared purpose. Before CHS was established in 1931, farmers in the US faced significant fragmentation, operating independently in a volatile market. The lack of coordinated efforts made it difficult for them to access critical inputs, market their products effectively, and compete with larger entities. However, recognizing the challenges of survival, these farmers pooled their resources and created what we know now as CHS Incorporated. Since its founding, CHS has not only survived but thrived for nearly a century, becoming a pillar of stability and innovation for its members. By transitioning to a cooperative structure, they created a shared medium for investment and operation that benefits all members, from small-scale farmers to large agricultural entities. The structure has proven to be more than just a survival mechanism. It has been a driver of economic growth, innovation, and resilience. CHS has a very unique patronage refund and preferred stock system that serves as additional reward mechanism for its members. Today, CHS Incorporated is the largest farmer-owned cooperative in the United States. Its story serves as a lesson in the power of unity, shared investment, and collective resilience in agriculture. Cooperatives have experienced significant growth and evolution both in the United States and globally, adapting to economic challenges and contributing to various sectors. So before I close, I will basically say this. Lessons for Sint Maarten. The cooperative model pools fragmented resources into a united front. Number two, collaboration reduces duplication and inefficiency. Long-term viability and resilience are achievable when members have shared ownership and collective goals, adaptable to Sint Maarten's context in terms of it can include modern elements like technology-driven farming, renewable energy, and agro-tourism. Today, as Sint Maarten grapples with challenges in the agriculture sector, I propose that we take an inspiration from the CHS model. By fostering collaboration and establishing a cooperative structure, we can ensure the long-term sustainability and profitability of our local farmers, ensuring that agriculture remains a vital contributor to our island's economy and food resilience. In closing, off my part, much like geese in formation, the farmers and ranchers in CHS came together nearly a century ago to pool their resources, reduce individual burdens, and achieve far more collectively than they ever could alone. This corporate model has been the key to their survival, innovation, and prosperity, standing as a beacon of what is possible when destiny flocks together. And that was my part of the presentation. I pass the floor.
Yep. Yeah. Good morning, honorable members of Parliament. My presentation will be brief because it is a summary of what my other three colleagues had brought forward from the perspective of the most forgotten group in our society, the seniors. Okay? I'm honored to be one of the senior members of the Sint Maarten Farmers Cooperative, highlighting the importance of agriculture and the need for government to garnish much more support to this sector. We have started by establishing the Sint Maarten Farmers Cooperative, not limited to farming, okay, but the cooperative model of growing our societies. I will start with community support agriculture, CSA, which is a model that is based on bringing agriculture to each community, establishing what we have just done, and the Honorable President of Parliament is very much aware of it, our first community market, farmers market. This is not just a matter of bringing food to the community. It is a social gathering of all members of the community in a collaborative form, coming together, including all sectors of that community, including the seniors. Okay, the presentation. I want you to take a good look at that picture for a moment. It highlights 3 generations of Sint Maarteners coming out to enjoy their own local food products, gatherings, socializing with each other, which has been left undone for way too long on Sint Maarten. Sint Maarten Cooperative Sint Maarten Farmers Cooperative intends to bring that back to our communities. Each community, our goal is to have a farmers market concept in each community with collaboration with government. Also, what it does is it enhances the communication between seniors and the youth, which is another section that is very much lost in our societies these days. We actually have the generational gap, which is something that we need to bridge, which again is a cooperative model that we intend to bring together between the older generation with our future generations. Also incorporated in this will be our home and backyard growers to the community markets, a powerful group of farmers. Okay, we consider them as a hobbyist, but this is also a powerful group of farmers that we need to incorporate and incentivize, you know, bringing them out. We talk about poverty, we talk about difficulties with the seniors. By incorporating this group, you are indeed enhancing the financial and economical turnaround of government's coffers. It is a group that has been far too long forgotten, and we want to highlight this. We want to bring this to the foreground. As I said, I'm not going to make it too long. We will await your questions based on the different segments that we have presented. And we stand open to collaborate with government on each section and bring agriculture to the forefront, finally bring it to the forefront in Sint Maarten. We cannot sit here and say, yes, we have an agricultural product. There's not much happening. We have set the stage and the model for government to follow, and we can only hope that you will take advantage of this and collaborate with us, cooperate with us. Okay, Denisio.
Mr. Wyatt.
Thank you, Ms. Arnell, Mr. Calmara, Ms. Postman. I'm very honored to have you guys at my side. You know, it's been a long journey of 12 years on finding the same people that share the same passion for growth in community, you know. And it's not an easy journey. And again, it still will not be an easy journey moving forward, because as we give this presentation today, again, you could realize that there's really nothing going on. And food, water, shelter, according to the National Recovery Plan a few years ago that was established after Hurricane Irma, the short-term, long-term, short and mid-term responsibilities of government, especially when it comes after a disaster, is first food, water, and then shelter. We need to take these, we need to take those opportunities within that sector of agriculture to strengthen those areas of our food security, water security, and then long-term shelter security too as well. Because those incentives given from a government perspective can only strengthen our people in this sector to move forward and make it something sustainable that we can look forward for our children to call it something as generational wealth. We're lacking so much in Sint Maarten that if something really happens today, again, the boat stop coming, where do we stand? So from here, I think over the course of years, I do believe that Parliament one way or another, has an idea of the possibilities, the benefits, and the direction that agriculture can take country Sint Maarten. So I'm only hoping that this year, under the theme of Parliament being agriculture, that we really start to see something happening in the country before it comes to a time where it takes us a lot more effort, a lot more resources just to get somewhere with agriculture. With that, what I would love to do is go over to a segment of questions that we would love to ask Parliament to help us also to get a better idea of how we can help to, shape this direction with agriculture that we're trying to moving forward, that we're trying to shape to make it something that can be sustainable, as I mentioned, in the long term. So if I get a chance, that'd be great if I could share some questions. That'd be good.
Sure, Mr. Wyatt, yes.
Yep. Okay, so questions from SXMC to Parliament. There's about 6 questions that we would like to just get some feedback on, which would definitely help us to shape our direction forward. The first one would be, does government plan to do anything with agriculture, animal husbandry, and fisheries for country Sint Maarten? Right? That would be the first question. Would any parliamentarian like to give some feedback on that?
Mr. Wyatt,
Yes.
I believe you have questions, right?
Yes, a few questions.
Okay,
right.
so put them all forward.
Okay.
And then you will get the interaction going with the members of Parliament.
Okay, great. So,
Just let me, sorry, Mr. Wyatt, just
No
let
problem.
me hear what MP La Cruz would like to state. MP La Cruz, you.
A blessed morning. Thank you, Madam Chair, Lady Revere, honorable members of Parliament and the invited guests. Madam Chair, Lady, his questions seem directed to government.
Well,
So-
let's allow
so
him
if-
to ask the questions, and then we will,
His first question
advise
was
him.
directed to government, so my advice would have been if he could cater the question then more towards Parliament, seeing that we are not the executive branch. So a question like, what are the plans of government? We would not be able to
Well,
answer that question.
We'll assist Mr. Wyatt once we hear his questions with where and how to deposit those particular questions, as well as entertain a discussion with members of Parliament. So, Mr. Wyatt, you may proceed. Could you repeat your first question, then give all of them, and then we'll have the discussion regarding the, where the question should actually be at. So, Mr. Wyatt.
sure. I do understand, thank you, MP La Cruz, the direction of your question. But in its context, I want to also ask Parliament the same question. As Parliament, opened the year pertaining to agriculture, what is Parliament intentions for this 2025 to do about agriculture, animal husbandries, and fisheries? So question number 2, sorry, let me just go down the line.
Yes.
So the next question would be, what policies and laws are set in place to ensure that? Does the current budget, as we realize, for agriculture is at 61,211 guilders, what intentions does Parliament have in mind to do with such a limited budget? My next question would be, how does Parliament plan to ensure that the legalization of medicinal cannabis, the legalization of medicinal and recreational cannabis be beneficial to the local farmers and small SMEs as originally intended? What is the current status of the Phillipsburg marketplace? And will provisions be set in place to ensure accessibility to local farmers, crafters, and product developers? Last but not least, would be, is government and Parliament willing to work or subsidize an organization to execute agricultural data collection, projects, and inspections. That would be all, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, Mr. Wyatt, and thanks to all of you for your part in the presentation on the topic. The members of Parliament, I see some members have already indicated their desire to speak, and I will hear you first, after which I would, especially where the first question is concerned, and that's Parliament's intention for this topic, and then I will go a little more into that, into selecting the team, reason why, and Parliament's steps. But in the meantime, I would offer my the members of Parliament the floor, and I start with MP Myers. Am I correct? Oh, okay. Oh, that's me speaking on the, okay. So we have MP Veronica Janssen-Webster.
Good morning again, Madam Chair. Good morning, colleague in Parliament, and also to our invited guests and the public listening. I was quick to press my button to speak because I'm really excited about this topic. I grew up in agriculture, more in animal husbandry. My family still does animal husbandry. And I didn't hear as much about it in the beginning, but I know that later on in the questions it was included. So I wanted to know, like, when we do the state of agriculture, I wanted to know what is the state of animal husbandry? Do we have recognized people who are doing animal husbandry on the Dutch side of Sint Maarten? And what is the difference, you know, maybe between them and the people who are doing sec agriculture? That's one of my questions. I have a number of questions. One of the first things that I wrote down was communication and cooperation among the agriculturalists. And then I was so glad to hear Mr. Calmeros exactly speak on that and the power of unity. Because unfortunately, I must say that the brief period that I was a minister, the ministry has a yearly project where they highlight agriculture, and I attended. And I saw that there was no unity a bit. So I was a bit disappointed because I would hope that all of you would get together. So this project that you have now with the cooperative, how is it being received by the agriculturalists? Because there are some who have been in this for quite some time. I know back in the early 2000s, I was president of the Small Business Development Foundation, and we did a lot with agriculture. And the people who were there then, I don't see them as much now in the forefront, but they are still around and they are still working. How are we translating or taking over some of the things that were started then and keep that unity and keep moving forward instead of let's say starting over? I just wanted to know, what's the feel in agriculture where that's concerned, working together already? And if you were able to pitch this cooperative to the community, the agriculture community. I also had, that's why I was glad to hear Mr. Wyatt speak about it, because I am championing that. The role of our agriculturalists in the cannabis industry. Because my thought on that is, if this is a 30 million industry, and this is something that we are talking about as a country, what is your role? And have you been consulted as one of the stakeholders already? You know, and also, when you're consulted, do you have the, like what is necessary to be a part of that industry? So those were some of my questions that I have for you all briefly. When you ask what Parliament is willing to do, I can tell you that just with some of the knowledge I've been to so many seminars and I've been to Syncroy, I think at least 3 years consecutively to the Agri Fair there. It's coming up now in February. I think I checked the dates for the last week in February. It would be good if you all send someone. I've been to the one in Saba, the Agri Center there in Saba, and we should indeed have something like that here. I also worked in economic affairs in the ministry here, and I know that they are actively busy with the agriculture policy, because up until last week, I know that the policy advisor who's working on it, traveled to get more insight as well with working on the policy. And I had one other thing about the marketplace. I think that definitely that's an idea, especially with the processing of our products, because agriculture, coming from there, it's hard work, and then the income might seem low, and that discourages people from going into it. But once you process your crop, you add the extra value to it, and that is where the incentive comes in. So if we could get indeed our people who make pepper and who process their crops to be central, in a central location like the marketplace, I think that is a very, very good idea. So that's what I want to say now, because I don't want to hog the mic, because like I said, I'm very excited always about agriculture and seeing it growing in Sint Maarten. So I just wanted to mention that in the opening. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Jansen Webster. And the next MP up is MP Shamira Roseburg. MP Roseburg, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Blessed morning, Secretary General, to our honorable guests, to my dear colleagues, and the public listening and viewing online. Seeing all what was brought forward, and especially the first question, which was posed in regards to what does government/parliament plan to do in regards to agriculture. In the past, I had a meeting also with Mr. Wyatt in regards to agriculture, for example, in the schools, but also within the justice system, because I was made aware that agriculture, for example, within Turning Point, has a huge positive impact on the people that are in Turning Point. So what I have done personally in regards to that in June, of last year, I have sent the executive branch a letter in regards to that to the Minister of Teyat, and as well back then the Justice Minister and also Education Minister, to ask those questions specifically to know, okay, in regards to the schools, what kind of projects can be implemented within the schools to make sure that the youth gets that opportunity to have agriculture in a structured way within the schools, because as we all know, Parliament can play a role by asking the different ministries questions, and also to see together with the three ministries, for example, Justice, Teyat, and Education, how they can work collaboratively to make sure that it can be implemented within the schools. So that letter was sent out, also explaining what kind of based on the meeting that I had with Mr. Wyatt, what kind of positive effect it can have within the schools, behavior regulation, also routine and discipline when you care for something, can be plant-wise, can be crops, like how it can make sure that, okay, you have a responsibility for something, and also physically and mental health related. So, and also building the self-confidence, and also creating self-sustainability, if you look, for example, for within the prison system. So that letter was sent out. I do believe a reaction was received from Teyat, but not from the Education and Justice Department. So what from Parliament we can do, or if I can speak for myself, what I can do now that we have a new ministry in place, executive-wise, I can follow up on what has been brought forward, and also mentioning with the funds that are made available to see what the opportunities are to have those funds available for agriculture, and if something will be put in place within the schools. So follow up on the letter that was sent, and to get a clear reaction from the ministries to know where they stand at this point in time. So follow up, because the letter was sent in June, detailed, so I can follow up with the current executive. So that's what I would like to bring forward in that regard.
Thank you, MP Roseburg. I now
And a
give
copy
the
of
floor.
that letter can also be sent to the organization, so that they are also aware of what has been sent and what the pointers are that I'm awaiting answers from. So,
Thank you, MP Roseberg. And MP York, I see you no longer. You had, okay. So then I go over to the next Member of Parliament, and that is MP La Cruz. MP La Cruz, you have the floor.
A blessed morning, Madam Chair Lady. Madam Chair Lady, I heard the questions from Mr. Wyatt, and I saw a couple answers from the other members of Parliament. I do have direct contact with Mr. Wyatt whenever I need that, and whenever he needs that also. But I had another question for Mr. Wyatt concerning the budget. Okay, that the budget has now 61,000 allocated to agriculture. But my question would have been, does the organization have an idea what would actually be sufficient with your plans for this year, 2025? If the organization has a plan already and they could say, okay, you know, members of Parliament, if we would have this amount, we would be able to achieve our goals for this year. And if it becomes some type of subsidy that it, you know, happens every year, once the organization could provide the financial statements of what is actually done with the funds, you know, then I think that would be something that could come from Parliament as a suggestion to government. So that number would be important for me personally. That is one. The next is concerning the agriculture policy that was created in government when we were actually there. Mr. Wyatt is fully aware that he is one of the authors of this, as I took it and went through it with him personally and made all the changes to it. But back again to the organization, when you see that policy today, what do you think of it? What is missing? And what do you need to be able to achieve your goals? And I've told Mr. Wyatt this more than one time, I am not a farmer. I have no knowledge of farming, and I have no green finger at all. What I am interested in is in assisting the organization getting things done. But in order to do that, right, a list of, okay, the problems, but what are the solutions? You know, for example, yesterday in the meeting with Vrami, I mentioned that I saw no zoning for agriculture where Mr. Wyatt himself is. You know, a list of everywhere that right now Mr. Wyatt would look at and say, hey, these are locations that are, you know, sufficient water, light, sun, whatever it is I would need. If I have these properties, I'll be able to grow more than what we are doing now on the Dutch side of the island. That list, things like that are extremely important to us because those are things that we could then champion. So if Mr. Wyatt has any more of that type of information to share with the members of Parliament, that would be of a help. Through you, Madam Chair Lady. Thank you.
Thank you, MP La Cruz. I now give the floor to MP Myers. MP Myers, you have the floor.
Good afternoon to Denicia Wyatt and Ms. Arnell, Mr. Calmera, and Ms. Boseman. Just a few questions I want to ask just to get a timeline. One of the questions, how long has your organization been established? And I want to also ask, how many times have you given a presentation to Parliament and or government? And the reason I ask this is because I want to get an idea as to have you felt that your initiatives in engaging with government has been fruitful or fruitless? That's the gist of it. So I want to get a timeline as to when you were established and when you started to actually engage, because I do believe in one of your questions to government, the 60,000 guilders, the 60,000 guilders that's allotted in the budget for agriculture. I do not believe that that's enough, and I believe that further incentives and investment from government can be given to agriculture. And in the recent talk, especially in our parliamentary meeting, there was a lot of discussion in regards to the recreational or medicinal use of cannabis and legalizing in Sint Maarten. But one of the things that I stated, and I firmly believe that when in my first tenure as a member of parliament, one of the persons that came to parliament and first gave their proposal as it regards to cannabis was the local farmers. And now I don't see that anymore. So I'm trying to get a grasp on, once again, we're having the possibility or the potential to uplift our own people in an industry that they have started many years ago, that have gone unincentivized, uninvested by government and or parliament for that matter, where legislation is concerned, and now you have a potential for these same farmers to get a piece of this action. And to quote, to make a quote like Mr. Calmera said from the Bible also says, "The stone that the builder refused shall be the head cornerstone." So, in essence of not recognizing or not being at the forefront of agriculture, and now here it is. I firmly believe that the local farmers should be in the forefront of this industry where cannabis is concerned. So those are my questions to you. If you can just give me a timeline so I can get a better idea on how to grasp it. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Myers. I now give the floor to MP Doran. MP Doran, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. First and foremost, I would like to say thank you for the team for the presentations. I have 2 points of concern or clarification then. I heard mention of utility bills and the cost and so forth. Has it been ever considered to use recycled water? And is it healthy? Has this been considered? When I talk about recycled water, I'm talking based on the wastewater treatment plant that we have. Is this, because I've always heard that this is good for agriculture. Is that the case or is not? If not, why not? Also, have you ever, through you, Madam Chair, have you ever applied for special rates, special utility rates, electricity and or water? If so, when was this done, and was it ever granted, or was any response ever given? My last point of clarification, when, as you see in the presentation, one of the questions and from Mr. Wyatt, 61,000 guilders is really, doesn't even scratch the surface in my humble opinion, as well as to what is needed to boost such an industry. I know that the government has been heavy on the campaign when speaking about this, and to me, 61,000 does not reflect the same energy. So I hope that we can foresee a change coming in the upcoming budget amendment whenever that takes place. Question on that point, through you, Madam Chair, has a plan ever been submitted to government based on financials and what would be required in order to push this, this initiative? That would be all for now. I look forward to the answers. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Doran. I now give the floor to MP Waver. MP Waver, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to Mr. Wyatt, Ms. Arnell, Mr. Camara, Ms. Boseman, and to the viewing and listening public out there. Thank you, first of all, for your presentation. I think it was very clear. The concerns raised are definitely valid concerns as well. I think from Parliament's end as well, when we see that we actually have a committee that's solely dedicated to agriculture says something that it is important to the House of Parliament to address these kind of issues as well. When it comes to education, it's something that's also dear to my heart. I know, Mr. Wyatt, you were busy early on as well with actually going into the schools and having commitments with that. I understood in your presentation that education is a concern as well. Has that slowed down from over the years, from when you first started? And if so, why is that? Are the schools taking over on their own initiatives? Or what was the cause of that? Or if not, the intention is, of course, to be in all schools because education from young is important, especially when it comes to these kind of topics and skills, to teach our children how to plant a seed, you know. I too have children, and then they come home with a little cup, they put a seed in, you know. Those are things that they teach from young, but of course on a greater scale as well, because I know some of the schools also have their own little gardens as well, where they are farming. So what is the vision? Has it grown since you first started? Have you slowed down, Mr. Wyatt, yourself, within the schools, and what was the cause of that? And what is the next step when it comes to education based on your vision? Thank you.
Thank you, MP Waver. Before I go over to give the floor back to the representatives of the Sint Maarten Farmers Cooperative, I just want to briefly go into some of the specific questions raised. And I want to start with the question regarding Parliament's intention for agriculture. And indeed, as indicated by myself and members of the cooperative, this year's theme, the parliamentary year's theme, is indeed agriculture and sustainable agriculture in particular. So what does this mean if Parliament selects a theme for its parliamentary year? That specific attention would be paid to the topic. How, you might ask? There is a parliamentary committee. We're sitting here this morning in a central committee meeting of Parliament, so all members are member of the central committee. In addition to that, we have working committees, which include one on agriculture, animal husbandry, and fisheries. So that committee of committees, it is expected that they would do like preliminary work for the Parliament. So eventually, when whatever matter moves from the committee to be its central committee or the public meeting of Parliament, that's the work of the committees. So with Parliament's theme for this year, it is to pay specific attention to that theme, whether it be in our committee, making visits, talking to persons, etc., etc. And so that is so for us in Parliament, overall, and this year in particular, sustainable agricultural practices is very important. Hence, our request to you to let us know what is the state today, and even more so, how can we move forward on the topic. The budget to which Mr. Wyatt referred, it is the budget as presented by the government, and which includes the budget post for agriculture. And I know it was quite lengthy, so I don't expect many of you to have been able to follow the discussions on the budget. This went on for days until, in some cases, early morning hours. However, the questions, and some of them raised by you today, have been raised by members of Parliament on the agriculture, the intentions for agriculture moving forward. What is the follow-up that government is given to the agricultural policy of 2022? And again, I don't expect you to have gone through the whole thing, but what I think would be helpful in your case is to pull out from the answers in writing given by government regarding this issue, to pull those out and acquaint yourself with what government has told the Parliament. So that is one thing that you can do, and the Agriculture Committee can assist you in this regard in terms of taking the particular statements that relate to your questions out and letting you know this is what government told Parliament regarding, for example, agriculture. I know it is the government's intention to refocus the topic within the Ministry of TIAT. As you know, formally, even before country status, we used to have a department. We don't have that today, and it is government's intention to have a designated unit, department, whatever name it is given in government, to be the counterpart of the agriculture movement, for the lack of a better word or more encompassing word, to have that counterpart with the outside movement and developments in agriculture. So I think that is what I'm going to recommend to our members, that we do get a hold on some of the specific answers given regarding the same questions that you're hearing there have also been posed by members of Parliament, so that you can see, well, this is what the government said. This is what the government told the Parliament in Parliament debating the budget. On the issue of the cannabis, and from what we have understood, there is legislation being prepared at this time. Yes, I know we have all taken note of the answers given by the ministers, and there seem to be, let me just use the word, a certain stagnation in the process that was started in government. I know, and I'm sure my colleagues and yourselves know of the initial request for proposals that was issued by the government some time ago. It is on the basis of that, from what I understand, the only information that I have of the request for a proposal is based on the advertisement for that was placed by government, in which it says, among other things, for a study to be performed. That was in the request of for proposals, etc., and also to come to draft legislation. We have understood from the minister that this process was continued, that stakeholders were consulted, and thus I think the question from one of my colleagues regarding, were you part of that consultation round with those persons who have been given or who made the proposal that was eventually accepted by government? That's what I have taken, and members of my colleagues can add to that. That's what I took. Some of the essentials I took away from the answers given by the ministers. Also, some other answers were given, but again, that's where that is concerned. The matter of the Phillipsburg Marketplace, same thing there. Many of my colleagues, including myself, have asked regarding the state. From what we're understanding, the project, if there was some delay, is back up and running in terms of coming to fruition. And of course, the point that you made with respect to how will the spaces there be allocated, and whether there will be spaces specifically for local products, including agricultural products, etc. And then I think the question that about being willing to subsidize data collection regarding agriculture, etc., I think that you can answer that for us by providing the information about a budget that you think is necessary to do, for example, this data collection. So that's kind of in a nutshell some of the matters that you raised. And then I smiled to myself as I heard some of my colleagues talk about agriculture and animal husbandry and even fisheries, because of, especially where the animal husbandry is concerned. I wouldn't say, yes, grew up in the fisheries part, and where the animal husbandry is concerned, of course, my late husband's role in that is throughout St. Maarten, I am sure. But so I too would like to see, because our committee in Parliament is, as I said, one for agriculture, animal husbandry, and fisheries. It's the complete part. And then with respect to agriculture itself, and of course we, with many of you, I too have spoken about the issue of the invasive species that threatened so many of the agricultural initiatives. Is something too that I and others asked the government about what is being done, especially where the monkeys are concerned. But then in terms of seasonality, of some of our local products, any ideas as to how we can spread it, as to how we will not be confined to a certain season, where, and if nothing can be done, how can we bridge that seasonality of certain products? And so if I can hear your thoughts on that. But yeah, so those were hopefully my answers to the matters that you raised as questions. And then from my side, I support a question of my colleague who asked about the total scope, animal husbandry, agriculture, animal husbandry, and fisheries. And then I see that MP Peterson is requesting the floor. MP Peterson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A good morning to yourself, to the Secretariat, to my colleagues, and to our esteemed guests. Madam Chair, I just wanted to touch base on, well, actually ask a few questions as well, because when we look at VROMI, I don't think that agriculture is getting any attention right now. Actually, when we look at long lease, I don't think that any land has ever been issued with the purpose for agricultural purposes. Although we speak about it a lot, that doesn't really need to happen. Actually, Mr. White himself, his land actually is residential, if I'm not mistaken, and he is using it for that purpose, which was known when he received the rights to the land to begin with. I think my question would be alongside of how much land would we need actually to basically make agriculture an actual thing in Sint Maarten, because we speak about the farmers, we speak about land, we speak about flat land, but the fact is that right now there probably is not any available flat land to the extent that we need in order to actually get something moving. I remember last week in the budget we spoke about thereby rainforest, and I believe the minister has been vocal about his intention to take back more than 50% of that land. And I remember from being in VROMI up to recently that the plan for that was to allocate most, if not all of that property for agricultural purposes. But then, you have a big plot of land, but then what do you do with it when it comes to planning? And then I guess my questions would start on the line of how many farmers do we have? How many people do we have who actually want to be part of this cooperative and actually want to be part of that collectivité of farmers that we need to create? Because when it comes to that, it's not only about agriculture, but it's about, for example, what is who going to grow? If we want to get on the market, for example, if we want to force the local supermarket to say, okay, you guys want to sell eggs, you guys want to sell lettuce, you guys want to sell tomatoes, we as government are coming with a quota, at least 60% of your output needs to be from local farmers. We can do that legislatively, but then can we also meet that? So it has to go both ways. And these questions, they're good. And I agree with MP Westcott, they should be aimed at government because the information that is needed, Parliament doesn't have it at hand. And speaking from VROMI's side, for example, another thing that we have to look at is what is the intention of, for example, the hillside policy? A lot of people speak on the hillside policy, and basically it's to limit the density when you go into the hills. But if somebody is only allowed to build, let's say, for example, 15 or 20% of their property, but the rest of it, they just lay bricks, then it's defeating the purpose, And I remember that one of the questions back then was, can we include agriculture into the hillside policy. For example, if you want to build up in the hills, that's no problem, but for the rest of the property where you cannot build, then, policy needs to be in place to say, okay, well then, we should use it for just to plant, so to not lay asphalt or bricks or whatever, but to make sure that it stays green. All of these initiatives all come in line with what you guys spoke about, which is education. Education in the schools, that's where it starts. And with Teat and Vromi actually being at the helm of what is to be agriculture, I think that, we have a lot of potential, but the communication is not there. I think that information is needed not only from you guys, but also from government side to see how we can meet halfway. From Parliament side, we can have initiatives, we can even send motions, but by the end of the day, we all know that if government doesn't move on it, then we can have these meetings over and over again. I've personally seen all of you in Parliament already discussing agriculture many times, and at some point, we need to say, okay, we need to go to where the source is, and that's government. And I would love to see a meeting like this happen with government, but not only with you guys, but with all the farmers who are, who want, and also those who might not be part of the cooperative, but still have their own ideas as to how they want to go about it, because we don't want to exclude them simply because they don't want to be part of an organization. Maybe we need to educate them as to why being part of the organization is going to help. And we have to actually make that tangible with government, that you guys, as part of the cooperative, now will get, part of the subsidy that is going to be made available, etc. So that's it's a really, I would say, intricate plan to make, and I think that this is the right step, but we also need to make sure that government gets involved, because all of these things, when it comes to the laws that needed, when it comes to the policies that are needed, we can't really change that as Parliament. We can make suggestions, but by the end of the day, government needs to take the helm on this. That's what I wanted to add, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much, MP Peterson. I see MP Myers requesting the floor. MP Myers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have one more question. How many farmers are a part of the Sint Maarten Farmers Cooperative? How many farmers are a part of the organization? That's the other question I want to know.
Thank you, MP Myers. MP Duran now has the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is both a statement and a question. During my tenure as minister, I issued 3 lots, if I'm not mistaken, but 2 for sure towards agricultural purposes, Mr. Wyatt being one, because that was a dual issuance. So I just wanted to correct a statement that was made here, and Mr. Wyatt can confirm that as well. And we'll leave it to there. So I'd like to get clarity on that. If that was finalized in the meantime, because I know there was an issue with the whole DDAM arrest and the notaries not signing off, I would like to know in the meantime, since the government has been issuing lots, if that has been officially signed over to you, Mr. Wyatt, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, MP Duran. Members of the cooperative, you have heard the questions and the comments. What could happen following this meeting? You can take, if you feel that the questions can be answered within a reasonable time today, we can give you that time. You can also come back and answer the ones that you can answer now, and then provide us with the others at some point, preferable via in writing would be nice, as you do whatever, I guess, research or whatever you would like to do. And then, so I'm going to adjourn just for 5 minutes so that I can have this caucus with you in terms of the continuation and responding to members of Parliament. So this meeting is going to be adjourned until 12 p.m. Meeting adjourned. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the continuation of the Central Committee meeting with the Sint Maarten Farmers Cooperative. We had a presentation by the cooperative as well as interaction from the members of Parliament based on the questions and comments, questions answered and comments made by members of Parliament. We're now going to Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome back to the continuation of this Central Committee meeting of Parliament, in which we have been having discussions with the Sint Maarten Farmers Cooperative, represented by Mr. Wyatt, Ms. Arnell, Mr. Calmera, and Ms. Boseman. We were at a point where members of Parliament have made comments, have given their opinion, have asked questions, and thus the opportunity will now be given to Mr. Wyatt and his colleagues for providing answers to the questions and matters raised by members of Parliament. Mr. Wyatt, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I will try to go through the questions from each MP with brief answers as fast as possible. So I'm hoping to give you guys all the answers to your questions today. You got no delays. All right. Okay, so MP Janssen. So the state of agriculture, animal husbandries with recognized persons, you was asking if there's a difference between agriculture, animal husbandry, and fishery. Don't feel no way sometimes when I just say agriculture, that's because I just don't eat meat. But agriculture is a wide scope. So animal husbandry, fisheries would fall under that agri/culture. When you look at it, all of those things are all part of our culture and heritage coming up. So it's agriculture. When you hear me mentioning it, I'm not excluding the two, but I am involving it under that one umbrella. How's the project being received by other farmers? Well, again, here on Sint Maarten, we have our own challenges that we deal with. But also those challenges are great opportunities. Let me put it that way. We as a cooperative, we're focused on those that are passionate about moving forward. We are open to every individual that wants to get on board, but we're not here to force people to be farmers. And with that, understanding the cooperative structure is not, let's say, just about farmers, but in our cooperative, we have farmers, accountants, product developers, graphic designers, things like that, because they all play a key role in just getting this one bottle of water out. And that's what we need to understand. The cooperative structure is not just about farmers, but it's all about the components that are necessary to be able to sustain any project moving forward. Our main focus, though, as a cooperative, is to ensure that agriculture gets somewhere in the country. That's our main priority, but not limited to, right? The role of agriculture with cannabis, and have I been consulted? To tell you the truth, I've been writing letters since 2018, submitting them to Parliament on behalf of Spaces Gardens and Sint Maarten Agricultural Research and Development Center Foundation, for the mere fact that we saw the importance then already that research needed to be conducted in this area moving forward. Those letters submitted to DIV have never gotten a response. And that's now about 8 years. I continue to submit them every year up until COVID, and then I kind of just slowed down a bit. And when the TOR came back into place, I did have a time consulting along with Minister Otley at the time, former Minister of VSA, to just get a little bit more insight on how to move forward with agriculture and the medicinal cannabis. At that time, the TOR was on the table, but again, like I expressed to him and his colleagues at the time, that I find that the TOR was set up in a way that was highly discouraging to us local farmers and small, medium enterprises. Again, we are not really legislative writers. We are farmers. There's enough going on in the cannabis industry on the ground on Sint Maarten already that all of this information could have been harvested if government really wanted to get it done in the right way. So for us, we just feel that this opportunity is not put on the table for us, the small man local farmers, to even be inclusive in the participation part based on the requirements for the terms of reference. So that's where we just kind of left it out. But the good thing about that is, during that time, I did get some feedback in my email from the Ministry of VSI at the time, ensuring, again, that's why my question came up earlier, ensuring that the movement forward with the legalization of cannabis is definitely intended to be beneficial for us local stakeholders and small SMEs as Spaces Gardens and as the Agricultural Research and Development Center. So that gave me a little bit of confidence to know if it would go that way, then maybe another meeting in a year or two to give a follow-up on that. MP Roseberg, thank you so much for your elaboration on the work that you did in the letters submitted during the time. We'll definitely look forward to seeing how we can follow up with you on that in the near future to see how that is going. MP La Cruz, you asked about a budget and what amount would be sufficient. What I would say, currently, the Minister of TIAT has a plan that we wrote when we came back from St. Kitts earlier this year. I would definitely encourage you, if you guys can, as Parliament, to reach out to her to get a hold of this document so you can scrutinize it. I think the budget at that time for that covers operational costs for a year, research gathering, and certain project developments within the sector of agriculture. I think we worked it out to, at the time, what the budget was of 250,000 gillas. For the past couple of years, the budget been going from 50 to 2 to something, kind of lose track. But when we submitted that project, I think the focus was at the 250,000 gilla point of 1 year of operational research and development costs, right? And that those funds are not, again, directly intended for just for the use of the agricultural center to conduct this research and development, but part of that budget is also to incentivize other farmers to be able to develop their projects, right? So that document could be on the current Minister of TIAT's desk anytime you would like to get a look at that. For the policy, what do I think about the policy now? You know, to tell you the truth, with or without a policy, we let this go and grow. That's the truth, you know. And time is the greatest thing that we have that we waste a lot of in these times. So while we can have a policy, if we don't start to grow anything and collect data around that, for example, or again subsidize an institution or an organization to be able to keep track of that progress, then we're only looking at, to say, we cannot be able to scrutinize it or challenge it. So it's there, the document is there, but how do we scrutinize it if we can't put any action to back it up behind of it? That is where we at for the past couple of years too, you know. And for me, it was very disappointing, of course, to contribute so much to a policy, but yet still can't have 1,000 heads of lettuce planted. That doesn't sit too good with me. So whether we have a policy or not, I think action is required. Action is required, and once that action is implemented, then we could, how you say, develop more of that policy into something that becomes very much more lucrative for us, I would say, right? I think that was it for MP La Cruz. MP Myers, you asked how long, for example, that we have been in motion. Well, as a cooperative structure, we were established last year, April 2024. But as an agricultural body moving forward, championing agriculture, we have been there for the past 13 years. 3 times sitting in Parliament. And at the time you asked me to if if those visits was fruitful. So I would put it like, I plant a lot of seeds in Parliament, but I ain't reap or harvest nothing. So it wasn't that fruitful, right? But with hopes that now that you guys understand this a little bit better and see that there's been a lot of gaps and delays, hopefully now it can give you a little bit more motivation to try to get something off of the table now that we're here for the third time in Parliament. So local farmers, the local farmers that are, for example, involved in the cannabis legislation projects, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not too sure which other local farmers have been submitting letters like me. Some do have discussions with me. Again, some lack of education don't know how to maybe put the letter together and submit it. That's why we too did it in a broad scope as an agricultural research and development center, so that we could eventually be able to come that umbrella that we could guide other individuals in whatever direction, whether it's cannabis, whether it's bell peppers, watermelon, doesn't matter. But to have a centralized place where people can come to get the right knowledge to be able to whether apply, for a tender, we need to have an institution. And I think that's what made R4CR, for example, so powerful, because they just didn't say, hey, we'd like to give you some funds. They provided all the educational tools and resources over the whole 8 months to be able to empower you and your organization to get it done the right way. So I think with having the right organization in place, by us being able to lead by example, we will definitely see more people coming out of the woodworks that are definitely interested, but then again, some of them don't have the willpower, the knowledge, and I wouldn't say that they have the passion, yes, but all those other extra things that I put under my belt and have sleepless nights about and all of that, some of them ain't got that drive to do that. And so I will continue as much as I can to try to do it for them. But there are people out there interested, and like I say, as a cooperative, we're not here to force farmers. We're here to set an example, and slowly but surely the cooperative keeps growing with those individuals that are passionate about the cause moving forward. And again, like I said, the cooperative is not just about the particular farmer, but each individual that also shares certain skill sets that are also passionate about the agriculture, animal husbandry, and farming industry, and how they all come together to get that sector off the ground and make it sustainable. MP Doran, you asked if we would be able to consider using recyclable water. That is always a possibility, but that would just always have to go through a testing process, to see if the water is safe, in a sense, if it doesn't have any out of the ordinary pathogens, too much high in salt contamination, whatever it is. But most of the time, water like that is always good back for the ground. Just would require some more testing on that. When it look at, we actually now have a reservoir that assists us with some water, because we can store up to 7,000 gallons of water. But again, it is difficult when you have to use GB water, which number one is no good for your plants, and then you still have to get a high bill when you know you didn't even use all that much water either. So, certain incentives in place is definitely, would definitely be appreciative. I currently pay my neighbor utilities for the past 10 years, which is, I'm so grateful for him, Mr. Arundel. He's been in a wheelchair ever since I met him, and his wife has been giving our farm electricity for the past 10 years. And that happened because in the beginning, when we did get the property, at the time, Minister Lake did give us an exemption to be able to get electricity. But at the time, I guess, whatever was going on within politics and within GB at the time, we never got the chance to get any electrical infrastructure connected to the property. And so we're still at that point today. You asked if a plan has ever been submitted for this, for GB, I think it was asking if. Has a plan ever been submitted to government?
MP Duran, you want
Yeah.
to clarify that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, through you, has a plan, because you mentioned the budget. What is the intention with the budget? So I asked, was a holistic budget plan ever submitted in terms of what you would need in order to push your initiative?
Okay.
Mr. Wyatt, yes?
Okay, thank you. Like I mentioned to MP La Cruz earlier, we do have a current sitting budget. In 2019, again, too, when I was in Parliament at the time, we also submitted a budget at the time of what we think could have been lucrative to get agriculture to a certain level. And again, all of that information has been there, sitting in government. MP Waiver. You was asking, has engagement in the educational sector in the schools slowed down for me over the past years? Everything that I've engaged with the schools was always based on personal commitments. So the teachers that come to visit the farm, that really want to get their students involved with agriculture, would then invite me back. And that's how a bond and a bridge begins to be milled. In between that, I was right before COVID, I think 2020 as well, government did subsidize a few schools, about 7,000 guilders per school to be able to implement agricultural projects. At that time, even before government did that, I was already trying to gather as much research as I can within Sint Maarten school. And so with that, you know, I was there for a whole year, no payment, nothing, just being there for the kids and making sure that this project could work in the school, but also to gather the proper necessary logistics and data that I would need to understand why these school projects fail. And most of these school projects fail because the fact that they're being funded by government, but there is no time or room in the school curriculum for it. So the school gets money, they set up a project, the teachers can't handle it, the students can't handle it, and the project fails. So with that, it allowed me to, you know, get a better understanding of how, when we want to implement a project in the school system, we should take these steps to ensure that it becomes sustainable. So that's why, really, for me, the school projects have slowed down. Right here. And you was asking what is the next step based on my vision? Well, tell you the truth, I can't really have a next step without understanding which direction government wants to go. Because again, even if I say what's my next step when it comes to the school and all of these things, this is more a government responsibility. You know, for us in the community, we're steadfast moving forward with the cooperative structure, which has, again, been proven to be successful over the past couple months, to the point where you see now, government has been talking about a marketplace for how long? We've established a marketplace within a short matter of time by using that framework of the Farmers Cooperative. So our plan is just continuously moving forward and seeing how we can lead by example and be that motivation for other farmers to get on board. Right. Okay. So MP Westcott, Madam Chair Lady, you asked a few different things, but you also elaborated on a few as well. You asked, were we part of the consultation rounds when it came to the legalization of cannabis, or when that process was being drafted or executed? Again, we had a good talk at the time with MP Otley. At that time, he was also asking us, the type of incentives and stuff that we would need at the farm, water, land, space, trying to get some ideas on perhaps how he could have been of assistance. And like I said, the conversation at that time was just surrounded around the TOR. And like I say again, and I will continue to emphasize on that, I definitely do not believe that TOR was created to be in benefit of the small local SMEs, as it was originally intended to. So I think that Parliament and government has to give that some consideration, because in the format, to the way that it is, we will never be able to participate. You understand? We would need all of these different criteria just to be able to be eligible. And that already, as farmers and small SMEs, is something that we don't have. And to just explain a little bit more again, as I did with Ms. Janssen, when it comes to animal husbandries and fisheries, they're not excluded under the umbrella of agriculture. Here locally, again, you could see that there's nothing going on. Even if you go to the French side, most of their fish is not coming from Sint Maarten. Our fishing zones are not regulated to the capacity where we as Sint Maarteners bring in fish. So there's nothing going on in these industries, which leaves room for great opportunity. And that's why I think we need to look at it and not look at that because these things are not going on, hey, we're behind, we're staggering. I think now is a great time to look at it more than ever as, hey, we've been out of this saturated. We have chosen to pick an unsaturated industry, separate from the oversaturated industry, and if you look at it, it gives us room for great opportunity. That's how I look at it. So we can say that, hey, government ain't do this, ain't do that. Now that we understand what can be done more to that perspective, now is the best time more than ever to take advantage of it, again, because we have nothing. So if you have nothing and you get something, you got something. You understand? So I think there is where we need to focus on, because we do have local fishermen, we do have local sheep herders, goat herders, cattle herders, but again, the capacity that they farm is still limited to, let's say, one good marketplace with St. Peter's community alone gone with everybody cows in one day. Because St. Peter's alone is an oversaturated community of over 20,000 plus people, 5,000 houses, 4 people average per house, 4 cars average per yard. It's a very saturated and congested area. So if you have an agricultural product that you could introduce to your community, especially in a community of St. Peter's, you have a good possibility that you can thrive good as a small SME, a butcher, a fisherman. All of those areas within agriculture can thrive tremendously within our communities. So as we don't have them, leaves great opportunities for those that want to get on board. Seasonality of products is something that we definitely need to take advantage of. I was having a discussion outside in the corridor for a minute, and I was asked, like, if we really think Sint Maarten can grow everything to sustain itself. That's a really far-fetched question, because if you really look at the world, there's no country in the world that grows everything on their own. That's where this model of that cooperative network trading structure comes in, and it has always been the greatest trade of all times from the beginning. If you look at ancestral slavery, all of that happened because of trading agricultural goods. So we can never grow everything on our own. That's why we need strategic partnerships. Over the time, we've heard a lot of ministers talk about going to, Suriname, Santo Domingo, Guyana, all of these places, which are good ideas. The problem we had with taking such a step is that we're not even trying to maximize what we have at home first. So when we go out there and we support all these other farmers in other countries, what happens to our farmers at home that we turn our backs on? So first we should strengthen our local farmers, and then we should continue to network with farmers regionally, internationally, because that word independent sometimes is taken for granted, because if you really split it up, it's being independent of one another. We have to depend on something. So if we look at that cooperative structure, look at that network structure, we'll definitely be able, we'll definitely be able, in a sense, to focus on more sustainability. Taking the crops during the season, maximizing on them. Right now we have mango season, but we still import tons of mangoes from Santo Domingo. So why have we not invested in our own lucrative mango industry here in Sint Maarten? Mango jam, mango puree, mango juice, all of these things can be a byproduct too of mango within the season. So if we have so much, hundreds of thousands of tons of mangoes per year, imagine what kind of capital that can turn over for some small local SMEs on the island. I think one more thing you mentioned before we turn the page was about invasive species. That does have a significant impact too on the development of agriculture. Right now we have, for sure, one of those most serious issues is the monkeys, but then we have the guanas, we have the African snail, we have spider mites, we have all these different type of things that even some new diseases come in sometime with the weather. So it's very hard to understand what you're going to be faced with next. But the most important thing is to keep observing, keep researching, and keep making adjustments according to, the observations that you're seeing going on within nature, within the environment, and within your garden space. Because that's the only way you can continue to make better decisions moving forward. One person might be able to plant lettuce good in their yard, but on the other side, I mightn't be able to plant lettuce good. Maybe lime might grow by me. So by understanding that and understanding now the environment and also understanding certain crops that we could plant that would deter certain species from really harassing them, all of that comes with time and knowledge and experience to be able to shape the type of crops that you want to grow and how best you could be able to manage these invasive species at the same time. Because sometimes you even have things like cows, goats just walk into your property and it wasn't even a monkey, but a cow gone with all of your crops, you know what I mean? So, fencing, protection, communication with neighbors, communication with people who have roaming animals too as well, and most of all, protecting your land space as much as you can to be able to ensure that your crops come to fruition. MP Peterson had some questions. He was asking how much land we would need to be able to execute a good agricultural project. I think now in a time like with modern technology, yes, land is important, but it's not as that important as before, right? Because we can use so many different technological approaches now to stack things and go up instead of wide. We can do a lot. So I think it's more of just having the right spaces. And if government is able, let's say, to allocate other spaces, then it's only a plus towards the additional spaces that we can utilize to grow. Because right now, most farmers and people on the island are growing from just their backyards and the little spaces that they have. Even those backyard farmers sometimes fail to realize that even that in your backyard still can't sustain you. You understand? Because even if you have a good 20 heads of lettuce, some chives, some garlic, some this, that, you're still going in the supermarket for potato. You're still going to the supermarket for this, for that. And then even if you decide you're going to just have a green diet for the whole week, and the shops them close down, how long you gonna have lettuce still in the back of your yard? You understand? So we have to think innovative for the future, and we have to look at how we can maximize as much space as we can now. Our hilltops especially can use for massive fruit crop production. All of that is still keeping the environment green while just implementing another byproduct for Sint Maarten. So all of that is something that we have to keep in mind. And again, too, like with the cooperative, networking with other farmers in regional areas, like I said, it is a must that we continue to also support these other regional farmers, because if you don't look at it too sharp, if Santo Domingo start bringing food here, no, half our supermarkets empty. So it's all about how to network with these regional farmers, support them, where if they have the land capacity to, and help them to come up with the proper planning on the type of crops that we may need to ship back to our country, right? As a cooperative model, that's how it gets done. It's not limited to who or where, but if you're all passionate about that same goal, that same vision, and all determined to get there, no matter where you be, you could come together and make something really incredible happen. So again, just to elaborate a little bit back to the hillside policy, we can utilize our hillside for massive fruit crop production still, without still hampering the environment. People in the hillsides, again, can use 20% of the land capacity for building and 80% for agricultural fruit crop production. And you can offer them and motivate them, by offering, certain government incentives to be able to stimulate them to want to get involved. Because again, too, we have so many people here, too, with land that would just tell you, no, I want nobody do nothing on my land, but they wouldn't plant a fruit tree on the land that they could even get $1 or much less $1, but eat some food from. So it's a mindset change that we also need to have. I do think we have still good enough space that we could set a good example locally to stimulate the next generation of what agriculture can really benefit to our country. We still have enough space to do that. MP Myers, you came back to another question on how many farmers are part of the cooperation. Well, we have 4 farmers, but the cooperative is 13 members. And again, not to underestimate the power of the cooperative, it doesn't just stand behind the farmers. We, as the farmers in the cooperative, try to ensure all our members that either help us with product development, accounting, marketing, distribution, we make sure that they get food. So they get their food cheaper, and we get on our accounting services cheaper. We get our different things at a much better price. So it all takes everybody to make this thing work, because even though when you throw up one big major agricultural project, you'll notice that it's not just the farmers that project depends on. It depends on the people that's in administration. It depends on the people in transportation, packaging, distribution, marketing. All of those key components is why today you also too have Dasani on top of your table, right? So I hope that you can have a broader perspective and understanding of how the cooperative structure can be able to empower, between April and now, by us pooling our own resources, own expertise, own skills, we were able to at least invest and take this marketplace project to a certain point where we could see that it's something that could be lucrative for our communities. So all we ask in government, in a sense, is to watch who is leading by example and try to empower them, because it doesn't make any sense we try to reinvent a wheel when there's a wheel already rolling. Right now, we're bringing farmers from Barbados and everything, for example, to teach us farmers here. But we have people that are very much good and highly educated in aquaponics here, aeroponics, horticulture, agriculture, permaculture, but yet we continue to go for everybody else outside and bring them in. How do you think that makes us to feel at farmers? It demotivates us, and that doesn't give us that vibe to say, hey, we want to do this for Country Sint Maarten. We would really love to see that Country Sint Maarten would really love to do this for itself too as well. Thank you for all your... Oh, I got one more question, sorry. MP Doran, earlier you was asking about the lots for agriculture. I think you mentioned that during your course of time that you also was able to give out 2 lots additionally to mine for agriculture, which is a good thing. I'm hoping that that those that got that opportunity definitely is look forward to utilizing for agriculture, because we definitely need as much space as we can. And for my piece of land, was it finalized? My papers are basically still at the notary. I've covered all my fees and everything, so I'm just waiting to see when that process is over. Give thanks. And thank you, honorable MPs, general public, for sitting in and giving us a chance to be able to, share our vision and our way forward when it comes to agriculture. And I hope that this presentation could have been a little bit more of an eye-opener and a motivation to see that this very important sector that is lacking in our country needs a lot of attention. Thank you guys for your time today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wyatt, for the follow-up to the questions posed by members of Parliament. Members of Parliament, does any member require a follow-up to what was stated by Mr. Wyatt? I see MP Otley would like to have the floor. MP Otley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, through you, to Mr. Wyatt. Mr. Wyatt, I'm glad to hear that when my colleague MP Duran mentioned about the land, because yesterday there was a discussion on the possibility of having multi-purpose on lands, and I'm glad to hear that that was actually given. I didn't know until today that the land is actually for residential and agricultural purposes, so that's a step in the right direction. So I really hope that you can follow up and go through with that as soon as possible. Also, as it pertains to our conversations, I think the public would make it frame as if we had one meeting, through you, Madam Chair, and that is not the case. When we met about agriculture, we met about possibilities, we met about land, we met about budgets, and etc. for agriculture. We met on October 20th, 2022. I have the article right here. And on December 14, 2022, the headline reads, Sint Maarten Policy on Agriculture, Livestock, Fishery approved by Minister Otley, which would be to give us a 10-year trajectory to help improve agriculture. Now, with our discussions, I bring to you that I have here an email sent by my person on the 29th of December, right after the approval. It says, Dear Mr. La Cruz and Mr. Gibson, on behalf of Minister Otley, please see attached content for development advice to grant subsidy to the Eco St. Maarten Agricultural Research Development. Also, you and I, through you, Madam Chair, were in a back and forth where we needed information, and I have here all the information provided by your person to show how we was moving forward with pricing in details, because we stated once there's a subsidy, we would need a clear detail on how you would go through with the funding. And we have here, for instance, facility rental. You had $12,000 per year, 3 employees at $1,400 per month. You had the building, et cetera, to go through. So the entire process had already started. We had an amount developed, and that's why I was listening keenly to what answer you would have given to MP Peterson when he asked the amount. I think it was MP Peterson, and you said 250, and that was indeed the amount that we did discuss. However, during the process of moving forward, I then had to move on because I was no longer the Minister of TEAT. The then Minister of TEAT came in which I can even remember your colleague stating once publicly that when I was there, the process was moving. However, I would like to make that clear that we were headed in the right direction, and our discussions was about agriculture. As it pertains to the cannabis, that was another discussion that we had in my office as Minister of VSA, in which it was clearly stated that while I understand the sentiments and the feelings, the amount that would have to be put into the legislative process where government is spending zero funds And based on your conversation through you, Madam Chair, it was stipulated that the company that is working would have to work with the local farmers and local, I guess, suppliers for information where we would speak about educational awareness, proper use of marijuana, et cetera, et cetera. I just wanted to make that clear that we had 2 meetings and the process already started and it was moving. However, I had to give up my seat as Tayat during the process.
Thank you, MP Otley, for those comments. I now give the floor to MP Janssen for any follow-up to the presentation or the responses given by the cooperative. MP Janssen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had some clarification, some additional questions on the hillside fruit crop production. I just wanted to know if you can name out like some fruit besides mango. What else were you thinking about for the hillsides? And then also, when it comes to water, well water, do you know of any of the farmers use our wells? Because again, back in my days, that was the first thing that we did in the mornings, was go to the wells and get the water and carry it to the farms that we had. And I championed during the budget, during one of the first meetings that I sat in here in Parliament, I championed us getting back some of the wells, because there is one well that I know of that has been annexed by the next door neighbor. And so I was wondering, how important are the wells now for the farmers? Thank you.
Thank you, MP Janssen. Mr. Wyatt, you want to briefly respond to the questions, at least, that were posed? Mr. Wyatt.
Yeah, sure. When it comes to the wells, those are very key components in our community when it comes to sustainability. Even in the time of a natural disaster, a few years back, I did write a plan for those wells in the St. Peter's community where they can be utilized, especially in a time after Hurricane Irma, when you saw that access to community and water was very detrimental. So again, you know, I write so much things and submit them to government, had so much meetings and so much sit-downs. I understand that a lot of things change, but then that's where all the delays come in, because there could have been so much that I find could have been done between then and now to be able to get agriculture at least a little footstep up and a step off of the ground, you know, and, you know, to hear, you know, that it's always a challenge, you know what I mean? It makes it difficult to really understand if we're really gonna see this become a reality or not. So I'm definitely hoping, again, like I said, that, you know, with the expertise that we have locally, you know, because we could bring anybody else from outside, but will they be able to tell you what's really going on in your community? You know, we have people in these communities that can give us the best results, you know, get us the best data and give us the best results to the solutions that we're seeking. And yet we kind of leave time keep lingering on, you know? So like I say, you know, the greatest thing that we have is time, and the more time, you know, we lose, is only one result in the end, because we're only getting older. So, you know, I think we should just utilize as much as we can within the time that we have the opportunity to, within the time that you guys are parliamentarians, within the time that the ministers are there. Use that time to be able to push something in the direction of agriculture that can have a long-lasting impression moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Wyatt. And at this time, I want to thank all of you, as well as the members of Parliament, for the interaction on a very important topic. So I'm sure in your mind the question might be, okay, and what happens now? With this particular meeting and a brief report of the meeting, my suggestion is going to be that we take this, as well as the answers given to us by government, to the Committee for Agriculture, Animal Husbandry and Fisheries in order to determine, along with your information, what Parliament steps can be in order to get or to continue the topic moving forward. So you probably will be hearing from us in this process. Several of my colleagues outlined the different trajectories for Parliament and government. And in our deliberations, we will try to keep those together as much as possible by asking the government the necessary questions, checking out with what the government has already responded to us on about the topic, and holding them to give account for carrying through with what they need to carry through. So this is the kind of process that you can take in your have in your mind, and we will therefore, yes, and keep you informed on some of the things that you raised. You mentioned several documentations and other such matters that are either with Parliament already or with government. All of these things can be brought back up by the committee specifically for the topic of agriculture. And as Mr. Wyatt said, that includes more than just farming. So with that, I want to thank all of you sincerely for the information provided, for keeping the fire burning where agriculture, etc., is concerned. And I had expected to receive from you maybe some Johnny cakes or something like that, but probably the next time.
Actually, the slide went off. I wanted to share the next slide. Alvin said he will put it on pause.
Oh, okay. And then in the meantime, you press the mic for us so that we can give you the floor.
Give thanks. I got to get used to this mic thing.
Just waiting for the slide mentioned by Mr. Wyatt to appear, and let me see if I'm getting a signal that it can happen like just about now. And
Come in, man, come in.
yes, I think so. I think Alvin have us covered. There we go. Okay.
Okay, give thanks.
Mr. Wyatt.
So, pertaining to your next question with the Johnny Cakes, I would definitely love to invite all the honorable members of Parliament, honorable ministers, staff, general public, to come out and really take an experience and a visit of the farmers market. We're not the biggest market, but it's a really small, nice, unique experience where you're able to come and get, those cultural little things that maybe disappear from since your grandmother gone, you know what I mean? So it's a whole community experience, an interactive experience, and a chance to really engage and see what Sint Maarten on a small scale alone has, potential within our community. So I would definitely love to invite all you guys to come out and support the cause. By you supporting that, you don't just support us as farmers, but you support a thriving community to move forward together. Thank you, guys.
Thank you once again, Mr. Wyatt, and I expect that Ms. Arnell Schatz will be there too. So clearly I visit these encounters. But thank you for that, and I take note of the fact that this one is at the Rupert Maynard Center, and on the 25th. Thank you all so very much, and I will now adjourn for 5 minutes in order to allow you to take leave, and so the meeting is hereby adjourned. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, we now go over to agenda point number 2 for this meeting, and that is the approval of the composition of the delegation and provisions for members of Parliament to participate in the SSS Cooperative meeting in the bottom Saba from February the 12th through the 14th. The schedule was that this meeting, this SSS Cooperative meeting, would take place in Saba, as mentioned. And just to give a brief background on this proposal for meeting on Saba, it was on August the 30th of 2022 that the Parliament of Sint Maarten accepted a proposal that seeks to, inter alia, have the Parliament of Sint Maarten engage in relationship development with Sint Maarten's immediate and Eastern Caribbean neighbors. The accepted proposal requested the Presidium of the Parliament to organize, before the end of 2022, meetings between the Parliament and the counterparts, our counterparts on Saba and Sint Eustatius, as well as with the collectivity of Sint Maarten and Anguilla, with the purpose of establishing relations and hosting familiarization discussions regarding, amongst other things, connectivity, air and sea between our territories, impact and localized solutions to climate change in our territories, and food security in the ongoing, at the time, pandemic scenario. Based on the accepted proposal, preliminary discussions have been held between the Secretary General of Parliament and his counterparts in Saba and Sint Eustatius on an administrative level. In addition, in November 2024, an informal meeting was held between the Committee for Kingdom Affairs and Interparliamentary Relations of the Parliament of Sint Maarten and the Island Council of Saba. During the informal meeting, it was decided to have the griffiers of the 3 islands discuss the possibility of holding the first of these meetings between the island councils of Saba and Sint Eustatius and the Parliament of Sint Maarten in the first quarter of 2025. The Island Council of Saba has already agreed to host the first meeting. So as this matter falls on the Kingdom Affairs and Interparliamentary Relations, it is that committee that would participate in these meetings. The CCARE comprises of all faction leaders in Parliament, and therefore the proposal would be for the following delegation to participate in these meetings: MP Egbert Doran, MP Veronica Jansen-Webster, MP Viren Kotai, MP Lyndon Lewis, MP Franklin Myers, chairperson of CCARE, MP Omar Otley, MP Rayon Peterson, the chair lady, myself, along with Mr. Garrick Richardson, the Secretary General of Parliament. The proposal is furthermore to approve the travel arrangements for this delegation. The delegation would have traveled from February the 12th to the 14th, 2025. I said would have traveled because we have received follow-up information from the territory of Saba that is also hosting a BESS summit, so a summit between Saba, Sint Eustatius, and Bonaire around that same time, and thus getting accommodations on Saba for the days that we had originally planned seems to be impossible. So what I'm asking the members of Parliament now in this central committee to approve is, if it is necessary, that the result is that we travel to Saba at a later time, or, which was proposed by Saba, that a meeting is held on Sint Maarten. These dates are still under discussion, but what I would like this committee to agree to, that if it requires travel for the SSS cooperative meeting, that the delegation, which would be the CK, which are the faction leaders, that approval is given in this meeting. And of course, if it's held on Sint Maarten eventually, then that would not be necessary. So if the members of the Central Committee can agree to that. So we are hereby approving, if it turns out to be on Saba, the travel of the delegation to Saba. If not, of course, members will be apprised of the outcome of the discussions that are taking place about this meeting in Saba. So, members of Parliament, we have MP Otley indicated that he would like to comment. MP Otley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I have no issues approving the Parliament's travel to Saba if need be, but I would like to hereby then allow MP La Cruz to take my place if that is the case. And if it isn't St. Maarten, then I would attend.
That is definitely noted, MP Otley. We have we have had, I don't know if it has to do with this particular travel, but in any case, such a request from other factions, if that could please be made in writing, and then should not be a problem, but the one by MP Otley for this travel is noted. So, members of Parliament, I want to thank you for your participation and cooperation, and I can now hereby close this meeting with the approval of the last agenda point for the travel. That proposal is approved, and this meeting is closed. Thank you. Meeting closed.